stayed like that. So according to him, that's why, high blood pressure is so prevalent in America, in African Americans. And so I'm like, well, what about the Africans? Because they don't have the same statistics. They have the same genetics, but they don't have the same statistics. So, but it's really interesting how, perhaps more than any other culture that I've encountered, Black folks, Black Americans, African Americans will tend to justify poor health through their DNA. And I love that you address that. And it's almost like a mental curse that, well, I can't do it, because it's in my genes. So, this is my fate. And so I love that you at least make an attempt to educate people to break free from that mental slavery, break free of those mental chains. But I want you to talk a little bit about the fact that it's what you eat every day, and instead of it being your DNA.
Right. Yeah. When I went to my doctor, and when he first put me on the medication, and he's like, oh, well, it's probably hereditary, right? I said, well, how can it be hereditary with me, right? He says, well, your mother, your mother, has it. And I said, well, I'm adopted. So, make the connection, doc, because that's not my biological mother. So how could this be, right? Well, how it is because we eat the same food in the house, right? I grew up eating the same foods as she ate, and she ate the same foods as her mother ate. So even though that we're not biologically related, we have the same disease because we're actually eating the same foods. If you look at Black communities throughout the country, they all have the same type of foods. And we wonder why that Black people have these diseases, because they're eating the same foods. And even there were one doctor I saw on YouTube was even talking to the point that the fumes that come from these restaurants even affect the community, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy. So we have a lot of fast foods. We eat a lot of soul food, right? And really, soul food is just slave food, right? It's just actually, and when we start having these conversations and changing the titles, we start looking at that. So we're looking at actually what the slaves took from the scraps, and we all know the history of how slave food, but the real soul food is actually fruits and vegetables and legumes and having it coming out the ground fresh and putting it in the pot and cooking it without all these additives. They had to put all that in there back then because it was literally just scraps from the master's table. So we have to change our thinking. We have to change, our slave thinking, because, I hate to say it that way, but we're still thinking like that, right? But we say Black Lives Matter, but we're still eating, we're still eating what the slave master is giving us, because he's putting these restaurants in our community, right? Mm-hmm. He's making it cheap. He's making it cheap for us to buy. Now you could get 2 Whoppers for $5. You could get 2 meals and fries, for $5. And then people want to argue, well, organic food tastes, it costs a lot. Yeah, I can't afford that as a single mother. Yeah, but your kid has $600 Yeezys on, right? So our priorities as Black people, are sometimes backwards when it should be on our food, and not on our clothes. Yeah, we all like to have nice clothes, but we also should be able to put nice food and understanding the importance of having nice, good food and nice food in our bodies. So, we get that, but also, right, it's a cultural conditioning, because our parents and our grandparents and even our generation, we hear that from the medical field that is it's our DNA, you know. And I see some doctors like you and different doctors on YouTube that really try to address that, but on the bigger scale, you know, Black people still think it's our DNA,
Yeah.
you know, and we have to have that larger conversation, and that conversation should be, you know, have come from the pulpits in the churches too.
Indeed.